welcome to Patry Live. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. Not too much rain over the weekend. It's a beautiful sunny day today. So on our show, we have two fascinating people tonight. From the Charlotte County Museum, we have Darren McCabe. And from the Chocolate Museum, we have the lovely Sarah Goulding. Thank you both for being on. Tonight we're going to be touching on two subjects, history and chocolate, but not simultaneously. So what's more important? Let's get that out of the way first, history or chocolate?
Chocolate. Yeah.
So you want history. You're dying to say chocolate. That was your gut instinct, was to say chocolate, but you ended up saying history.
That's a big part of our history.
Right, it is. Okay, so, and I see you've brought a whole bunch of paraphernalia here, so we'll be talking about all that as well. So I'm going to start with you, Sarah, because it's been a very busy, exciting week for you.
It has.
Tell us why.
This week we opened a new exhibit at our museum, so we're really happy to do that. It's been over a year in progress, and finally on Thursday we opened our new exhibit, Goulding, yesterday and today. So we were thrilled to do that, and we had over 80 people in attendance for the opening.
That's great. Now, is the museum open all, because a lot of folks probably haven't even been there, even locally. Is it open all year long?
We're actually open 9 months out of the year, and then the other 3 months, so December, January, and February, we're open by appointment. So people can still come in, they just have to call ahead.
So you're not in Cuba or the Dominican for 3 months?
No, chocolate history never stops.
It never stops.
No, there's a
and
lot
this
of
is a
work.
big part of St. Stephen, because St. Stephen is the chocolate capital of Canada, I believe.
We are Canada's chocolate town. We've had that designation for over 15 years now.
Wow, that's very cool. So what do you do at the Chocolate Museum? What does the Chocolate Museum consist of for those who haven't been there?
Absolutely. So the Chocolate Museum is housed in Goulding Brothers' original chocolate factory. And today what we do in there is we celebrate all things chocolate. So when guests come to our museum, first they learn all about the history of chocolate, and then of course all about the Goulding brothers. So they have been making chocolate in St. Stephen for 144 years, and we love to share that history with them.
And can you buy chocolate there?
You can't. So the museum has free samples for guests.
Even better.
Everyone loves. And then the Goulding Chocolatier store is separate from us, but it's in the same building.
That's right next door.
Right in the front of the building. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so if anybody, as everybody knows, this is a live call-in show. So if anybody wants to call in and they have a question about chocolate for Sarah, or a general question about history for Darren, and you can trick him and quiz him on anything. This man is very knowledgeable. As I was just saying, he is a scholar and a luminary around town, as is Sarah. So history questions, chocolate questions, call us at 855-529-8826. So I'm going to jump to you, Darren, and we're not done with you yet, because we've still got an hour to kill here. And we want to make sure we get in all of this. You're from the Charlotte County Museum.
The Charlotte County Museum, that's correct. I'm on the board. And the museum is we're all fully volunteer. The museum is open in the summer from July 1st, Canada Day, right till the last Sunday of August. And it's fully staffed by summer students. So without those summer students and the support of the province and through their programs, our museum we couldn't be open. So we always are very grateful for that support. And the museum is housed in the old, it's actually the former residence of James Murchie, who was a lumber magnate and businessman in St. Stephen in Milltown. And the house was built in 1864. And the museum actually, after the building was donated to the Milltown and then eventually St. Stephen, it was taken over by the Charlotte County Historical Society, and in 1980 Marion Bain was the driver and the major contributor towards what is now the Charlotte County Museum. So it's been in operation now for 37 years.
So 37 years you've been in that location?
Yes.
Wow. And that's a big house. I've been in there. You took me on a private tour last fall, and I was just amazed. First of all, it's a beautiful museum.
Right.
unbelievable things to see and read about, and some things you can pick up and touch, which is quite something else. Very spectacular for a museum. But that was Murchie's house.
Right.
So he had a big house.
Right.
And did he have a lot of kids?
He had 7 kids, I believe, and and he also had there's the back section of the building was kind of the servants' quarters. So they also had a servant staff there in the building as well. So it was quite a busy building. There was I think there's 7 fireplaces in the building, so
Wow.
they would have burned a lot of wood back in the day, but he owned a lot of it. So.
And do you know about how many square feet it is?
No, I don't.
But I would say it's quite large.
It's a very large building.
Okay, so now when the museum was installed or you started, why did they pick that building?
Well, I think it was because it was available, and it was donated by his daughter, James Murchie's daughter, Emma Eaton. She married into another big lumber family, the Eaton family of Milltown, and so she donated it to the town of Milltown at the time, and it was actually used for a municipal building back in those days, and then. As Milltown amalgamated with St. Stephen, of course, the municipal operations was centered down in St. Stephen, and therefore the building was vacant for a while. And that became available, and because of its history, Mary and Bain took it upon herself to make sure that building was used again. So.
And so both of your museums are located in very historical buildings.
Right.
Right off the bat. So I mean, even just going there to see the locations themselves is quite amazing.
Absolutely.
And how long has the Chocolate Museum been in the...
We've been located there since 1999, so that's actually when we opened. So not quite 20 years for our museum, but always in that building.
And there's a connection between the two, or you're trying to market the two and work with each other? Because I guess it's hard to get a lot of people locally to visit the museums.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of great cultural attractions throughout Charlotte County, and we always get together and have great conversations, and we agree that we can only do better by cross-promoting each other. So especially local people can be hard to get in. You take for granted what you have around you. So when we get them into one location, we want them to realize they can go to the other spot as well and learn even more. And then all the other great spots around Charlotte County.
Now, I know you get bus tours too, like people come in on a bus and they'll go to the Chocolate Museum, and then you're trying to then get them to go to the Charlotte County, that type of thing?
When possible, we certainly get different kinds of tours and people that are looking for specific events or activities, but absolutely we'd be interested in getting more people that want to go to both.
Because even in Charlotte County, you're talking a lot about the Goulding family and the history there as well, so you kind of cross over that way.
The two actually complement themselves very well. We have a whole room dedicated to the empire which the Goulding brothers built in St. Stephen. We've got a room dedicated. The Chocolate Museum is specific to that, to the Goulding Empire and what they built, and the family in general. We have a room dedicated to the two major industries in St. Stephen that the Goulding brothers actually started. It wasn't just they weren't just involved with the chocolate. They were also involved with starting the St. Croix soap factory, manufacturing company. So
they're a very important family in the whole history of the community. So as Darren just said, obviously the chocolate candy business everyone knows about. St. Croix soap manufacturing company was created by one of the two Goulding brothers, left the candy making business to start that. Then they were also instrumental in the creation of the cotton mill itself. So James Goulding had a huge role in making sure that that project went through. So the family throughout the years has just had a massive impact on the area. And then we get into William Francis Genong, who went on to map all of New Brunswick. So I mean, that family, obviously, they're to their 5th generation in charge of the company now. So when you have 5 generations of a family, you're obviously going to have a big impact in the area.
So it wasn't just chocolate. They were sort of diversified, if you will, into all sorts of areas.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, if you go back through past mayors, of course, and leaders of different groups, and you know, one of the first Genong brothers was also lieutenant governor. So of course you're going to have a really big history, and our museums are always going to overlap and have a lot of shared information.
And the history around St. Stephen and Charlotte County is very interconnected. And I mean, there are certain things that I've sort of never thought of, like that Mr. Murchie was a lumber merchant and that they were shipbuilding and there was an axe factory. It never occurred to me why they would need an axe factory, but I guess it was for the lumber.
Right.
See that? And it's funny, those little things you don't put together. They're sort of like little pieces of a puzzle, and then when you see it, it sort of makes sense. And I remember you telling me, and I'm jumping around here, but it's my show.
Go ahead, it's your show.
When I went in the museum, and I asked you why the houses around here are so huge, and you said because the lumber merchants that sort of started the community built big houses for themselves and for their friends and their neighbors, and you know, it's just incredible. But it's an amazing, unique town.
Right. The history of St. Stephen, unlike and Charlotte County in general, unlike a lot of the areas in New Brunswick and other parts of Canada, our area has had such a close connection with the history of the United States, particularly with the American Revolution. And a lot of those business people that we've come to know as our pioneers, our business pioneers, our political pioneers, they came from mainly, you know, states like Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and these families originally, and most of a lot of the European settling families, not the Aboriginals, but certainly the European settling families, they came from that country's history, that, you know, particularly the American Revolution. So, but we've always stayed very tied close to that, and even to this very day, we're still tied really close, and it's a very unique relationship, a friendly relationship. It has been even during the War of 1812. So Charlotte County's got a unique history that's unlike probably any other area really around in New Brunswick, probably in I would dare say and debate all of Canada, because of its unique historical beginnings.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And the way that it was built and started and set up and grew, and again, this interconnection between businesses and, you know, the factories and the production and the cotton mill and the chocolate, and how everything sort of weaves into each other is fascinating. And you don't see that everywhere else. It's not a community, a business community built on banking or a specific production of something. There always seems to be a background story to everything. Yeah. And that was one of the things I loved about the Charlotte County Museum, is how you've divided it up into rooms that sort of focus and represent one particular either product, or like the soap, the chocolate, the axes, the vroom factory, the furniture. Just incredible how it's all connected. And the Genongs are sort of in the background all the time, weren't they? It's just always part of that huge history.
Once they made St. Stephen their home, they made it #1 priority to always keep it as their home. So when the cotton mill was a prospect, they knew St. Stephen, Milltown at the time, needed the cotton mill. We needed the jobs, so they made that a priority. Today, I think you really see that with the work that David Genong does in the community. And of course, Brian and Nick and everyone, they always are so invested in our community, and they give so much back to it.
Now, I'm going to ask a question, and forgive me, Genongs, if I don't know everything. But why chocolate? How did that begin?
When they started, they opened a grocery store. So it was the two brothers, James and Gilbert. James was an entrepreneur. So they opened a grocery store, and it didn't really take off until they brought in candy. So when they brought in candy, people started to come in, and then they changed gears and started making their own candy. So all pretty quickly, looking for those opportunities, always looking for where they could go next, and that's how they made and then grew the candy
So
business.
it was just a big interest in candy that got them going. And why do you think there was such an interest in candy here? Just curious.
Oh, people have always loved candy, right? It's always been a good sell. And then chocolate itself was relatively new. So the year they started, 1873, was actually the year milk chocolate was created. So when they started bringing in chocolate, that was so fascinating for people. I mean, it was wonderful, it was new, it was exciting, and people wanted to come and have that.
No, I remember I saw a documentary recently on the things that sort of changed the 1800s and pushed them forward. And one of the things was sugar. Because without sugar, chocolate just isn't the same. I've had dark chocolate without sugar, it's not the same. So the fact that sugar was available, the fact, I guess, that ships could bring it in here, again, all part of that interconnected process.
Absolutely. The location was ideal.
Right.
Yeah, it worked.
And they created the chocolate bar.
They created the 5-cent milk chocolate nut bar. So unfortunately, almost all the candy companies in North America started up around that same time. And because of that, it's hard to narrow down. So when you narrow down who made the first chocolate bar, we can say for sure Goulding made the first 5-cent milk chocolate nut bar, which was introduced as the Evangeline bar.
Okay, Evangeline because of New Brunswick?
Evangeline, absolutely. So the book, Evangeline, the fictional book, had been introduced just about 15 years before that, and everybody was going crazy for this book, so all the businesses in New Brunswick really jumped on that
really
ship.
Interesting
Yes.
that connect, because I didn't know that the bar was called Evangeline. And of course, and the heart-shaped box for Valentine's Day.
Absolutely, introduced in 1932, actually for Christmas. So it was the Depression. They thought a heart-shaped box would cheer people up. It didn't do so well, and then when Valentine's Day came around, they thought, oh, this is a better fit.
Wow, isn't that amazing? Now, there are samples, or not samples, but you've got original Valentine's Day boxes at both museums, is that right?
That's correct.
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
correct.
Antique chocolate boxes are beautiful.
Yes, they are.
And they last a long time. So they were built to last. In our museum, we have over 100 years worth of chocolate boxes to show you what's the term? To show you the evolution.
Evolution.
Yes,
Yeah.
of boxes over the years and how they've changed. But those older ones, it's still not uncommon for me to have people bring them into me. Just out of the blue, they'll show up at the museum with a beautiful antique box and often a good story to go with it.
Wow, that's amazing. So now, here's a question I have. Did the Goudings invent the chocolate map, the directory to which you know which chocolate to choose?
Oh, no. No, so that would have been around. But however, in the 1970s, they did introduce a surprise box of chocolates that did not have a guide or a map. It was a surprise what chocolate
So it's
you would
called
get.
the surprise box.
It was called the surprise box. It was a beautiful box. It's in our museum. But it was a surprise of what you would get, and the real surprise is people didn't like that. So that did not catch on.
Yeah, so, because I need to know what's what.
Yes.
Because I love all sorts of chocolates, but there are certain ones that I may want to take a bite out and then give it to my wife.
Right.
And that's what happens when I don't have the map. It all falls apart and she ends up eating all those. Because I'm looking for very specific ones, like those caramel ones. Mm-hmm. Those are delicious. Those are incredible. I love those. So now, you don't have chocolate at your museum?
No, well, we do, but it's been behind the display case for a long time. Wouldn't recommend anybody eating it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like and you're not giving out samples.
No. We don't give out any samples of the candy, but we do have a nice room of a lot of very unique items that are about the chocolate factory, the candy factory, and we also have a lot of unique items with regards to the the St. Croix Soap Manufacturing Company, which actually was located where the Goulding Civic Center is now. That's where the excuse me, we've been saying Goulding so much here. the Garceland Civic Center. So so the brothers were involved in that too. So.
Wow. Now that Vroom Furniture Factory, was that in that same immediate area?
That was downtown. Yeah,
okay.
that was downtown.
Because there's a street named Vroom.
Yes.
Lane.
Yeah.
Right near the Gar
Yeah,
Salon.
and that would be named after that family.
So the soap factory was where the Gar Salon is now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's got a bit of an interesting history too, the soap factory, how it progressed along and who purchased it.
Right. Eventually it was purchased by a larger company out of Toronto, and they started actually in the last few years of the St. Croix Soap Manufacturing Company. They started producing a brand name that we all still know today. It's called Sunlight Soap. And you can still find Sunlight dish soap, Sunlight laundry soap. It's still made today, but it was actually in the last few years of the St. Croix Soap Manufacturing Company. It's actually produced here in St. Stephen. So that was interesting.
One thing I found amazing when I took the tour of the museum was how much manufacturing, how busy this little tiny town has always been and still is to this day.
Right.
For a very small population, it's incredible how much gets accomplished here. And again, I think it's the type of thing where people don't think about it. They sort of take everything for granted, you know.
Yeah.
But it is an amazing, magical little place that way.
Well, the people in modern times, it's hard to picture Charlotte County being the booming county that it is. But back in the 1800s, this was the age of big doers, big dreamers, entrepreneurs. We had shipbuilding here. We had shipping companies, seafarers. They were very successful on the West Indies trade routes, the British West Indies. And so it was really busy. So there was a lot of movement of goods being purchased and sold, and a lot of people wouldn't picture it. Can't picture it nowadays. But in the mid to late 1800s, Charlotte County, in total, was in such an economic power in New Brunswick, and the only areas that could compete with the growth of it, both population and industry, was in St. John itself and Halifax, Nova Scotia. So Charlotte County was a power base, and that's why people will look back in our history and say, they'll look at how many people became very prominent citizens in the province and in this country. It's because the power base of New Brunswick, outside of St. John, was here in this county.
Unbelievable.
And I mean, in our history, where can you go? Then take a walk down the streets of St. Andrews and still find a house that was brought here. It was taken down by the Penobscot Loyalists. They called it the Penobscot Association because they came from the Penobscot River after they were kind of got booted out after the treaty, and they actually came to St. Andrews, and to this very day you can go down to the front street and see one of those buildings that still exists, and I don't think you can find that anywhere else.
No.
It's very unique.
Yeah, it really is. Now we're going to take a quick break, and I see you both have brought lots of interesting show and tell stuff, so we're going to have to look at that. So we're going to take a break. Again, if anybody wants to call in and ask either Darren or Sarah a question, 855-529-8826. You're going to have a little break so you can think of a good question to ask and call us in. We'll be right back with Rob Patry Live. Okay, so we're back with Rob Patry Live. I hope it didn't scare anybody. I just want to take a second out here and thank Jay Reamer. And I'll tell you why. Because he's on Bingo every Tuesday night, and he always gives me a little promo for my show, and I never reciprocate. So I'm going to reciprocate. This Tuesday night, Jay Reamer is going to be playing Bingo. Okay, that's it. Okay, so we're back with Sarah Goulding and Darren McCabe, and they've brought along like some really fascinating, cool things. You know, my wife says I use those words too much, fascinating and cool. But I think they sort of strike home, don't they, those words? Because I can't really think of anything else. But the beautiful things. Okay, so who wants to start with show and tell? Sarah, you're going to start.
Great. So I actually brought a brand new sketch that's done of what the original Goulding factory looked like. So we were talking about the importance of the old buildings earlier.
Right.
And this really shows that. Now this factory sketch shows the building in circa 1980. So today this whole section on the side is gone. This is where people go to park. It's a parking lot now for Service New Brunswick. The smokestack in the back is gone. But when we were opening our new exhibit, Goulding yesterday and today, that just opened, we realized we didn't have anything that captured this. So of course in this space here is where the old bank building is on the beautiful Milltown Boulevard in St. Stephen. And because of that, we'd never been able to capture anything that showed the whole factory. So we are really lucky. We were able to reach out to Shani Lamont O'Leary. So she's a local artist who captures a lot of the beautiful old wood baron homes and the Victorian homes. And she did this new sketch for us that's become the center of our exhibit. So now when people come, they can really get an understanding because, as you said, people want to know what happened when. So when they look at the Charlotte County Museum, what happened on the top floor? Oftentimes those were ballrooms or entertaining areas, right? So now we can say, well, on this floor in the top, this was the box factory. So all of the beautiful boxes were made right on site here. Over here on the second floor, chicken bones. So one of Goulding's, of course, most famous creations made over here. So finally, with this sketch, we can really explain to people what happened when. Because today, of course, this building has totally transformed. It's now owned by a company out of Moncton that specializes in heritage buildings. And it has a lot of apartments and a lot of lawyers' offices and accountants and different businesses like that in it.
Okay, so see what's caught my attention, not in the picture, but what you said was that they were making the boxes there. So they were making the boxes for the chalks. Everything's self-sufficient, isn't it? There's this one little, well, not a little, but I mean a large company that they do everything. See, this is what's amazing.
Not quite,
Not
though.
quite everything.
It was actually a
You know what?
company.
You never correct the host. Didn't I tell you?
Oh, I corrected you. Yeah, I'm infamous for that.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So this was actually a case of a company within a company. So this was the Home Paper Box Manufacturing Company, where they brought in an expert who made all the boxes in his own company on the top. And then later on, as time went on, during the Great Depression, he lost a lot of his money, as happened to many people with their investments. And at that point, Goulding purchased it from him and then ran it as a business within. But David Goulding says even at that time, it was always seen as a separate complementary business.
Right, but still together. That's fascinating. Now you've got a box there that I'm just think is beautiful.
It is a stunning box. I mean, around here, of course, we always think about the
You
water.
can just, there it is. If you want to just point it over there right to that. There we are.
Excellent. So it's just a stunner of a box. But this box is amazing. It has a beautiful story behind it. Last year, some people came to my museum, this lovely lady, and she brought me this box and donated it to the museum. And this is the kind of thing that we just love to receive.
Now, before you put it down, excuse me, how old is it?
This box is just over 100 years old. So we talked about how those boxes that were made really were designed to last. So that's why you can see, of course, the side edge is still on this one and the quality of the box. The ribbon, so boxes would not have been closed with cellophane. Cellophane came along later in the 1920s, so all boxes would have been sealed with ribbons. And today we just, of course, wrap them to protect them.
Okay, so 100 years we're talking about, I guess, well, what year is it? This is
1917.
1917. Okay, so just, excuse me, World War I, just after war. But it's very modern looking painting, if you will. You know, I find it very intriguing. And the siding,
Yes, absolutely.
again, is very, what's that type of painting today? You know, like Picasso. What's that word I'm looking for? What's that word? Please, somebody call in and help me.
Tell them the term.
It's just very modern looking. I think it's
beautiful.
beautiful, beautiful box.
What would often happen is experts or salespeople, I should call them, would come from New York and places like that with great big beautiful catalogs. So books similar size to what Darren has here, filled with samples of the paper. And then the company, people at the box company would select. So they would try and they would select. Now at that point as well, you were making small batches of boxes. So we're talking, you know, maximum a few hundred at a time. But for the time, this was a very premium high-end box. So this would have been a very expensive box.
Now, is that a New Brunswick scene, do you think? Because I find it very Asian in a way. And I'm wondering, I find that it has a very Asian influence. That could be me, but
To me, I just see a sailboat and I see the Maritimes.
Yeah.
I really see local scenery around here, almost the image of sort of like a lighthouse in the distance
yeah.
here. So to me, this is very Atlantic Canadian.
But the colors are just stunning.
Oh yes, like a stunning sunset. Well, it's just a beautiful box, absolutely, in wonderful shape. And like I said, we're very happy to have it. But it's got an even more lovely and charming story that actually goes with it. So if I'm allowed to indulge
Please,
you in
yeah.
this story.
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent. So I'm going to show the picture of this beautiful young lady. So this is Georgie Lawrence, and she was getting engaged. So in this box, or in this picture, you can
If
see
you
her.
could just hold that. Here, you know what? I'll
You
hold
hold
it
it,
up
and then
here.
I can talk.
Yeah, you can talk.
So
Can
in
you-
the picture, she's in a carriage, horse-drawn carriage, and she's actually holding a wrap box there. And that box...
I'm in a bad spot here. Tilt it up.
Perfect. So
Okay.
this is the story of Georgie Lawrence and Hollis Bartlett. And Hollis Bartlett, of course, Bartlett's Mills,
Yeah.
close to St. Stephen, Charlotte County. That's where a lot of the family still is today. So they had met at an event at a church hall or a community hall in Bayside. Immediately fell for each other. They began courting, 2-year courtship. This gift was given to her, this box of chocolates. And then 2 years later, so exactly 100 years ago last year, they got married. And then, of course, she held on to the box. So this is not uncommon to hold on to the box, but the box was held on to, and then her lovely daughter came into our museum last year, well into her 90s. She had inherited her mother's nightside table, and inside the nightside table
Was that
was the
box?
box of chocolates.
Wow.
So going way back to their love story, just one part of a beautiful courtship that resulted in a long marriage, so many happy family members. And last year we actually were able to have an event to celebrate the 100th anniversary of when they got married. And the whole family came. We had so many family members in the museum.
Isn't that beautiful?
And it was just a lovely celebration.
What
so-
a wonderful story.
It was a lovely story, and on top of it, we're so happy to be able to preserve this box. So this box, this story will be archived, will be saved and preserved. And of course, once we shared the story last year, it also received some great national media attention as well. So it was shared even further.
And isn't it amazing how the Goulding factory and the chocolates have, again, weaved themselves throughout the town and the stories and the history. It's unavoidable that it just is going to happen. Just beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So I did want to just say that if anybody out there has a beautiful antique box and a story, I am happy to accept donations at our museum.
You can certainly contact Sarah Goulding, and she would love to hear from you. And then the next time you come back on, you'll bring a new box.
Well, that's it.
I would love that.
It's my dream to do a next exhibit with all these personal stories. So at this point, I've got about 4 beautiful boxes with amazing stories that go with them. And of course, I'd really love to put that all together. So they can come and see me anytime.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Now, I guess we're on to you now, Darren. Now it's your turn for show and tell. And you have some some interesting things as well, some scary looking things. I'm not going to touch anything because he's got on the fancy gloves. Look at those white gloves. Do you know, I remember watching a Leave It to Beaver episode.
I'm not going to ask you to cough.
And no, good Lord, no. And Wally, actually, he went to a cotillion. I guess that's like a dance, and he had to wear those white gloves so that when he put his hand on the girl's back, he didn't leave, I guess, a sweaty stain or something.
That's disgusting.
I know. I'm sorry. You know what? I shouldn't have brought that up. Again, I talk too much. Okay, so what have you got for us here today?
Well, I grabbed a few little items from the museum, and a couple of them are, and funny, we really don't have an exhibit that's dedicated to World War I or World War II. They have a beautiful, they actually have a beautiful archives museum at the St. Stephen Legion that they just built. But I have a couple of items that take us back to 1866, and that's our new display that we built last year. This year it's going to be, it was finished. We were a little bit late getting our storyboards built, but they're going to be building up this year. And so in 1866, people may have heard of the Fenian raids, which actually, because of the Fenian threat here in Charlotte County, and it was a threat all over the county. It was a big enough threat that Britain dedicated 3 warships into the Passamaquoddy Bay. They supported the local militia, built it up, and supported it with regular British troops. They actually brought in an artillery unit. This was 10 times in 1866, but because of that Fenian raid, it was one of the contributing factors that later that year, New Brunswick held an election, and the pro-Confederation government of Tilley came to power, and that's kind of the rest of the story, because New Brunswick joined the other 3 provinces into the initial Confederation. And so the Fenian raid is kind of our story, our Confederation story in Charlotte County. Now, one of the items that I did bring, and I'll hold it up here, this is actually a pin or a medallion or actually a medal that you can see across the top of it. It says Fenian Raids 1866, and this would have been issued to every one of the members of the Charlotte County Militia and the British regulars, as well as the Navy, who were involved in the defense of New Brunswick and Canada, because they also did incursions into Upper Canada, being Kingston and Fort Erie. So any soldiers that were involved in the defense, they would have received one of these medallions or medals, and it would have had, we don't have it unfortunately, would have had a red ribbon with a white stripe in the center of it. So this is unique, and this is unique only to the soldiers. This was donated to the museum by a family member who had an ancestor that was involved in the Charlotte County defense during the Fenian raids.
And that's Queen Victoria?
And that's Queen Victoria on that. So.
And what's on the other side?
The other side, basically, as you can see, it's got a fine design on that.
Okay, Canada, and then it says Canada.
That says Canada.
And what year is this again? I'm sorry.
That was 1866.
1866. Okay, wow.
So, and you can see in front here, I'll hold it up. This is
It's a samurai sword.
Yeah, this is a British Canadian officer sword from about that same period.
Wow.
It's very old. You can see on the grip there's the crown.
Yes, yes.
And you can see the maple leaf.
Yeah, and this is an animal's head, isn't it?
And that's the animal's
What
head.
is it, a monkey?
Basically,
Looks like a monkey.
Well, it's a lion.
It's a lion.
An
okay.
emblem of the monarchy.
Yeah, because a monkey was not an
Yeah,
emblem of anything.
yeah, I hope not.
I have a question for you. Now that's, what do you call is that a sheath? Is that
That's a sheath. It's a leather sheath.
But
yes.
how do you get it out? Because it has a curve.
Well, it's the same way. It
just pops
slides out because it slides out with the curve of the sheath.
Was this sort of you see, I'm losing. I can't remember words. Isn't that awful? Here I am, a TV host, and I
cutlass,
can't remember. No, that's a car, I think, an Oldsmobile. No, no, that wasn't what I wanted to ask at all, and now it's gone.
When was War of 1812?
It disappeared. No, was this like for ornamental purposes, or was this an actual fighting sword?
That's an actual. Most of the swords were ceremonial or ornamental.
Right.
But that is an actual. I mean, they didn't sword fight. When you get into the 19th century, there was very little sword fighting after the Napoleonic War.
This was more to just sort of give you a little nudge,
that's
so you get out of the way.
With the big pips on the shoulders and the ornamental, and it looked good for the officers. So,
beautiful sword.
The other thing, this was very popular in the homes in Charlotte, everywhere. This little rig right here is called a Hughes stereoscope. Okay. There was a couple of different companies that produced these into the early 1800s.
You just turn it that way, and then folks can sort of
see it. That's where you peer into it.
Okay.
And on the front of it, you'll see this a long shaft, and it's got two wire holders in it. And I'm gonna see.
So this is like the original ViewMaster.
This is the original ViewMaster.
Do they still make ViewMasters? Probably not.
I
guess they got 3D TV. What do you need a ViewMaster for?
This was the original ViewMaster. This is what it actually looked like back in. This would be from about the 1850s.
Right.
And this was popular right up. This was a popular pastime right up through into the 1930s. And what people would do, they would get their family photos, and here's a card. They would get them. They would send their photos away and get them done on what are called stereo cards. And all it is a double image, same image, but there's two side by side.
Okay.
Okay. So once they would get the image, and they put it in the wire holders, and once you looked through there, the image would appear through the viewfinder in 3D.
Okay, I got to take. Is it okay if I got?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'll take a look there. That's probably. I don't want to break it. Oh, that's amazing. I see Patrick, and I see, this is like Romper Room.
This is Rob's Romper Room.
This is amazing. Now, what I find incredible over the ViewMaster deal was that people were actually doing pictures of themselves, family pictures.
Yes. Yeah. It's not done nowadays, and it's fascinating to be able to get your own home, your personal photos done in a stereo, on a stereo card, and actually have those to see in 3D anytime you want.
So I would send this away, and in an hour or less it would come back to me? Is that how it works? A little booth
galloping
somewhere.
off up the road on the horse.
On the horse.
On the iron horse. But it would take a few weeks, because they would send those out of here, usually by train. There was a company in Halifax that actually did them, and and they did them throughout the United States, the stereo cards, and there's a company also in Toronto. So they would send them by train, and they would come back in these boxes just like this.
Right.
And they would have stereo cards, and this would be part of their family album.
Now, would these be local, like the photos that you do have? Like, for example, this one here is some fellas working on the train tracks.
Yeah, that's actually on Prince William Street in St. Stephen.
Oh, you're kidding.
That's if you can see, there's the Christchurch Cathedral that still exists.
Okay.
The top that blew down during the Saxby Gale.
Is that well, I was going to say that's a church near my house, but you wouldn't know that because you don't know where I live. But it must be
the big gray.
The big gray building.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, now I got to take a closer look.
Here, I'll put it back.
Put it back in.
You can see the Blair House in that
can see the
picture
Blair
as
House.
well.
Really?
Yeah.
That's right around the corner from me. Well, this is interesting. See, this is for you kids at home. This is why you need to learn history, because there's you might have a grandmother or grandfather, great grandparent in one of these pictures. Okay. Oh, Patrick's telling me. See, because I'm having fun and I'm enjoying myself. Now he wants to take a break. See, this is typical. This is my life in a nutshell, folks. I want you to know that. Okay, well, okay, we're gonna take a quick break. I put my glasses back on, and while we're taking a break, I'm gonna look at these. So we'll be right back with Sarah Goulding and Darren McCabe. Because I'm sure I'm talking here. So the entire production crew was in here instead of working, which is what they should be doing, and just because this is fascinating.
Yes.
You know, you bring something like this out, and everybody wants to see it. So there's a big hit at the museum.
Yes.
See, this is again why everybody needs to go to these museums and support them. Because history is, and I'm going to do my speech at the end, because I always pontificate and tell people what to do. Okay. But it is very important. It's fascinating. Surely I can't be the only one fascinated by this.
Well, it seems the staff here.
The staff here is very okay. So
I got one more.
Okay, what have you got here?
This one here, I'll pick it up.
Okay.
You will see on this. This is actually, I don't know if you can get the camera on it. This is, there's German writing on it, and you can see the Nazi Germany symbol on it. And you'll see down here at the bottom it says Berlin 1943, and this was produced in Berlin in 1943, and you'll see how big it is, how thick it is.
Wow.
This is actually the atlas that came out of a U-boat.
Right.
It was U-889 that surrendered on the 13th of May 1945 to the HMCS Joliet off the coast of and it was off the coast of Nova Scotia, and it came in at Shelburne, and there was a family member's relative served on board the Joliet, and he managed to finagle a couple of these, and they donated them to our museum. So this was actually aboard a German U-boat.
Now, it's a map of Canada, isn't it?
It's the atlas of all of North America.
Because I've seen this. I don't know if it was this one, because there's more than one that you're.
Yeah, we have two.
But I've seen one that has St. Stephen on there and then all the street names.
Yeah.
Of St. Stephen, which is amazing. But I read a bit of German, and that says U-boat handbook, in case you didn't know.
There we go.
Yeah, see? But that's amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
So they were, the Germans were right over here.
Yes. Well, I mean, the U-boats were on our coast quite often, surveying, and they actually did go park, and there's some history of them actually going into St. John's, and for a weekend leave and going into St. John's in Newfoundland
and having a good time.
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, see, I didn't know that.
And St. Pierre and Miquelon, they were French islands. They are French islands.
Right.
So they could easily dock there anytime they wanted.
Right.
So they were here.
They were around.
They were here.
Well, that's amazing. But that's just an incredible piece of history right there. So when people come, do you get? I know it's hard to specify the demographic, but are they young? Are they old? Are they local? Are they from away?
Well, my museum is a bit different. So a chocolate museum appeals to a really wide audience, including people that aren't necessarily just your regular museum audience.
You know what? I got to cut you off right here. I got 4 or 5 minutes left. Where did this hour go?
Wonderful.
I thought we just started. I thought we had plenty of time. Okay, sorry to cut you off, Sarah. But just all of a sudden I got nervous.
No, it's okay. So just to give you a general idea, we welcomed over 13,000 guests last year at our museum. So we welcome people from all over, of all different ages, families right on up. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're always there at the museum?
Yes. Yeah.
So every one of these 13,000 people would have been touched by your words.
Except on the weekends in the summer when
they're not there.
Graced by my fantastic summer
Because I
staff.
haven't, you know what, and I shouldn't say, well, I haven't been here that long, so I'm going to say I haven't been to the museum yet, other than I had a meeting with you to talk about, we're going to be doing some things down the road. But I want a tour, and I want you to do the tour, because I think you know a lot, just like Darren. You guys are amazing. And then you give out chocolates.
We do. We give out chocolates. We
Just
share
through the entire
information.
tour?
Yeah,
just
in a
eat.
few rooms. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then we customize the tour as well. So we have our general tour, and then when we get certain people that are history buffs, then we can really go into that and have a lot more fun. I'm sure it's the same at your museum
Yes.
as well, right?
You know, we get them at all ages. You know, some of the demographics is a little older for us because these are, we call this as our area is a settlers area. This is where people really want to come and dig up the roots, and because there's so many families that originated from here, originally from out of the American Revolution and out of the Loyalist movements. And so they're coming back here to St. Andrews and Beaver Harbor and Blacks and St. George and St. Stephen, and they're coming here digging up the roots. And so we get a lot of those, and we try to direct them down to the Charlotte County Museum, down to the Charlotte County Archives as well. So, so we try to get them circulated as best we can,
Right.
and into the area that would best suit them. So.
Now, when does the Charlotte County Museum open? Because it's coming up soon. Isn't it?
We always open on Canada Day, July 1st, and we're open to
And this is a big year. I don't know if you knew
It
this,
is.
either of you, but Canada's 150 years old.
I might have heard that
Wow.
once
Did
or
you
twice.
hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Now, were either of you two around in '67 for the centennial? I'm sure you weren't.
Well,
But I know you were. You had to have been, old man like you.
well,
You're
Rob,
gonna smack me now. Well, maybe you weren't. I don't know.
Well, let me put it this way. I remember playing the Centennial Canada song.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do.
so
Yeah, I taught.
I was just a toddler, but I remember it.
Yeah.
English on one side, French on the other. So,
Absolutely. So Canada Day is when you open,
Yeah.
and it's a special year
Yes.
because of Canada 150. So I would hope that this museum, both these museums, are going to be packed with tourists and packed with local people. That's who I think is very important
Yes.
and need to
Yeah.
see these
Absolutely.
places.
Absolutely.
And I said that, I wrote an article last year about Minister's Island, and I was shocked at how many people born in St. Stephen have never been to Minister's Island. And I said, Patrick, here's an idea for a show one day. We're going to take a van full of local St. Stephen, St. Andrews people, whoever wants to come on, who's never been there, and we're going to take them there. And we're going to foot the bill to the Charlotte County Museum or something. And we'll take them out for lunch and show them around. But I think it's so important that people know about their own history, especially when it's this good.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, other places, geez, they haven't done anything. But here we got for chocolate alone should be mandatory. Everybody should go to that museum, and everybody should go to Charlotte County.
Absolutely.
I've been there, and it is fantastic. You can't, I mean, some of this stuff, I mean, we got like 5 or 6 things. He's got like 1 million. And so many interesting
Yeah.
educational subjects. Kids, everybody. I strongly urge everybody to go to the museum, support history in our communities, in St. Andrews, in St. George, in St. Stephen, Grand Manan, Deer Island, Campobello. Man, we're like in the hub of history. You walk down the streets and you both of you tell me how incredible it is. You know, you walk by, you don't have to go far.
No.
You can stay
no.
home. But get out of the mode of just watching TV and playing video games and go see something and talk to people and listen to them, because I mean, where are you going to see something like this? You know, after this show is over, I'm going to be sitting here for the next hour looking at these little pictures. All right, now Patrick's in my ear. Is it almost over, Patrick? I can wrap up. Okay, thank you, Sarah Goulding. You're an absolute sweetheart. Thank you, Darren McCabe. You're a sweetheart, too. You both
Well,
are.
thank you very much
You
for
both
having
have
us.
done an incredible job. And I know you're both so supportive of the history in this community. And I love it. I think it's great. You're watching Rob Patry Live. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to tune in next week. Tell all your friends. Watch the show. And watch Jay Reamer on Bingo on Tuesday. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Very good.